What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. So with Doctor Strange premiering in theaters this week, I wanted to use this week's Versus video as an opportunity to bring you guys some more content about Doctor Strange. And today, we're going to answer a question that you all have been asking for so long. Who would win? Doctor Strange or Dr. Manhattan? Now, before you make a beeline for the comments and tell me this is a mismatch, I want to make it clear that we're talking specifically about classic Doctor Strange. And for all you guys who already know this stuff, just bear with me for a minute. So in comics, the term retcon is short for retroactive continuity, and it refers to changes in a character's continuity that a writer will implement whenever they want to change the status quo of a character. Now, this happened to Doctor Strange in 2009 in New Avengers number 54 under the writing of Brian Michael Bendis, when Doctor Strange relinquishes his title as Sorcerer Supreme, allowing the position to pass to Jericho Drumm, also known as Brother Voodoo. Now, up to this point, Doctor Strange had become immensely powerful, and we'll get into just how powerful later in this video. But after this point, and even though he would become Sorcerer Supreme once again in issue number 34 of the second volume of Bendis' New Avengers, we haven't seen Doctor Strange even come close to approaching the level of power that he once had. It's also important to note that this event is not the only time Doctor Strange's power level has been altered, as various writers have written stories in which they try to reduce Doctor Strange's power in order to make him more relatable to audiences instead of an almost omnipotent force. Now, with that in mind, while pitting Doctor Strange against someone as powerful as Dr. Manhattan may seem like a ridiculous notion at first, once we get into some of the things Doctor Strange is capable of doing, we'll find out that this battle would be a lot closer than we might think. Now, the hardest thing to do here would be to try and define the power set of classic Doctor Strange, and the reason for this is that Doctor Strange's knowledge of magic is so vast that he basically knows a spell to accomplish whatever he wants to do at any given time. And so instead of trying to figure out what his powers are, we'll look at some of the things that he's done and some of the characters that he's defeated in order to get an idea of just how powerful he is. On more than one occasion, Doctor Strange has been able to defeat Dormammu, one of the most powerful demonic forces in the Marvel Universe that rules his own dark dimension, and Doctor Strange has been able to construct mystical shields that protect him from Dormammu's attacks, even as they tore apart the dimension around him. Doctor Strange has also defeated Galactus by launching a psychic attack that ends with Galactus collapsing after shutting his mind off to escape the terror of Doctor Strange's attack. Strange has also defeated an entity known as the In-Betweener, who was created by the cosmic entities of Order and Chaos, which tells us that at the very least, Doctor Strange was on a power level greater than some of the cosmic entities in the Marvel Universe. Doctor Strange is also able to use his spells defensively to withstand attacks from even the most powerful attackers, as we've seen him do with the Juggernaut in Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 44 and the Hulk in Incredible Hulk number 299. This is important to note, as Doctor Strange's most glaring weakness is the fragility of his human body. However, we see from these examples that his mystical repertoire includes sufficient means to protect himself from physical harm. In addition to this, he was actually able to use protective spells to repel an attack from Mistress Death, frustrating her so much that she concedes that claiming Doctor Strange to the realm of death would be so difficult that it wasn't worth the effort. Now, perhaps the most telling example of Doctor Strange's ability comes from statements made by the Beyonder himself. Now, like Doctor Strange, the Beyonder exists in both pre-retcon and post-retcon versions, but in this instance, we're talking about the pre-retcon version of Beyonder, which is much more powerful than his post-retcon counterpart. This version of the Beyonder was able to warp reality and manipulate matter, but Doctor Strange was able to undo his handiwork. Furthermore, the Beyonder remarks that Doctor Strange could trap him in a pocket dimension for all eternity if he so desired. And so the fact that Doctor Strange could do this to an entity of such immense power gives us an idea of just how powerful he is, and also suggests that he has the power to manipulate matter and warp reality itself. Finally, Doctor Strange is afforded certain telepathic abilities through his mastery of the mystic arts as well, including telepathy, which was used to overpower the Scarlet Witch during the House of M event when she was at the height of her powers, and even besting Moondragon while she was in possession of the Mind Gem. Now, while this is just a sampling of the many feats that Doctor Strange has performed in his long history, at the very least, it gives us an idea of what he's capable of. And so what I want to do is I want to turn our attention to Dr. Manhattan. Now, if you're not familiar with Dr. Manhattan, he's a character from Alan Moore's Watchmen comics published in 1986. He was created when a nuclear physicist named John Osterman became trapped in a room during an experiment involving radioactive particles and was completely disintegrated. Now, while he was believed dead, John's consciousness survives, and he's eventually able to reform a body. However, following the reformation of this body, John is not human anymore, but instead possesses powers that cause some to describe him as godlike, including the ability to see the past, present, and future all at once, as well as producing destructive energy blasts, creating force fields, and basically doing anything he wants through his ability to perceive and manipulate atomic and subatomic particles. In addition to this, Dr. Manhattan has an impressive list of feats as well, despite having only appeared in the 12-issue Watchmen series and subsequent prequel miniseries called Before Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan. For example, he's able to vaporize enemies as we see him cause a criminal's head to explode, as well as disintegrating his teammate Rorschach. And so basically, what we have in Dr. Manhattan is a walking, almost omniscient atomic bomb. Something else to note is that he's able to manipulate matter, since he's able to construct a fortress on Mars from the matter within the planet, add oxygen to the atmosphere so that humans can breathe, and create water out of thin air. He also possesses telekinesis, as we see when he's able to move and levitate his entire fortress, and can also render himself immaterial and phase through solid objects. Now, we've also seen several instances of him being able to teleport across long distances, and can even teleport himself from Earth to Mars. And during the events of Before Watchmen, he also demonstrates an ability to travel through time. And so the question becomes, who wins between these two almost immeasurably powerful beings? Well, while there is room for argument, I think the win here actually goes to Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange is said to have vulnerabilities against enemies who are strictly science-based, which would include Dr. Manhattan, but this is a weakness that Doctor Strange can actually overcome. What I really think tips the balance in favor of Strange's power is that we have so much more evidence of his power than we do of Dr. Manhattan. We do know, for example, that Dr. Manhattan is powerful, and we've been told that he has godlike powers. But if we're basing this on what we've seen him do, I think Doctor Strange would have an answer for all of it. In addition to this, Dr. Manhattan most likely would try to vaporize Doctor Strange, but Doctor Strange has proven his defensive spells are strong enough to withstand attacks from powerful enemies. And furthermore, we see the Eye of Agamotto protects him from an atomic bolt in Strange Tales number 166, so we know that at the very least, he's able to withstand atomic attacks, which would include anything within Dr. Manhattan's arsenal. The problem with this, and what we don't know, is how Dr. Manhattan would fare against a magical opponent, as magic does not seem to exist in the Watchmen universe, at least not as far as we know. As a result, we've seen nothing to suggest that Dr. Manhattan would be able to do anything to counter Doctor Strange removing him from this dimension and placing him into a pocket dimension, as it's been established classic Doctor Strange was capable of doing. And so at this point, because we simply don't have any evidence that Dr. Manhattan could do anything that Doctor Strange couldn't counter, we kind of have to declare Doctor Strange as the winner. But that being said, Dr. Manhattan has appeared in the DC comics as part of DC Rebirth. What the limits of his powers are is something we don't know. But until we actually see a definitive limit provided by DC, again, I gotta go with Doctor Strange on this one. But with that being said, if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, be sure to hit the sub button, become part of the Rob Corps. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, drop a like. And if you guys have your own stance on who you think would win, or if you have ideas on what characters we should pit against one another when it comes to our Versus series, whether it's Marvel versus DC, or Image versus DC, or Image versus Marvel, or Valiant, or so on and so forth, then post a comment down below and let me know which heroes we should pit against each other. And I will catch you all later. Peace.